Nyck De Vries has had a bit of a stinker start to his debut F1 season. We all know this, it has been well documented. Now, is he the only driver right now being outperformed by his teammate? No. But he is in an AlphaTauri, the Red Bull sister team, and we all know that they, more than any other, are not afraid to switch things up mid-season. Points don't tell a particularly accurate story, but what about average finishing position in these first 5 races between Nyck and his teammate Yuki Tsunoda? Well, Tsunoda's managed P10.6 on average. Nyck De Vries P16.2, that's 5.5 places between them. That is not an insignificant gap by any stretch. Look, maybe it is harsh calling into what is a rookie driver's debut season into question just 5 races in, but he is at the Red Bull sister team that was Toro Rosso, and he's not a rookie, is he? The 28-year-old is 2.5 years older than Charles Leclerc, for crying out loud. He is well versed when it comes to motorsport. So today I wanted to look at all of the realistic options available to Red Bull, including Nyck himself, to weigh in on whether I think they should stick or twist, and if so, to who. I'm going to give my opinion once we've gone through everyone. You give me yours down in the comments below. Let's talk about it. The absolute earliest we could see a potential switch for me is the summer break. 8 races time, round 13 is Belgium. That's the final race before we have 3 weeks off. 8 races for Nyck to prove that he's got the minerals. Now, let's clarify the kind of deliverables, the specific factors I'm taking into account when coming to my conclusions anyway. Is there a young driver that has the potential to be the next Max Verstappen? Look, if Max is going to retire at the end of 2028, I know it's 5 years away, but it would help for Red Bull to get someone in early doors and build them up so that transition is a bit more seamless, I guess. Maybe he won't leave, but that 5 years will fly by. They threw in Max when he was super green and he took like a duck to water. Maybe someone else could. Secondly, and I know I've mentioned this time and time again, but I do think that team is up for sales. So if they're going to bring a second driver in, it's not necessarily just looking from a Red Bull Junior point of view. They could bring in a driver, an established driver, a confident, safe driver, potentially that could make that team a little bit more appealing to purchase. Again, maybe getting rid of Franz Tost, or he left, I don't know. But maybe they want to change the image of that team to make it more sellable. Or maybe they do just want to build a second driver, a long-term Sergio Perez replacement, who's doing bits at the minute, don't get me wrong, but that's my theory as to why they hired De Vries in the first place. They want a long-term Barrichello Bottas, to go alongside Max and supplement his title challenges for years to come. I've linked the tier list in the description below, so if you can, play along. Let's start in no particular order with... Let's start with Antonio Giovinazzi. Look, given he's had 3 fairly recent seasons in Formula 1 alongside a driver of the calibre of Kimi Räikkönen, and he's still in his 20s, technically, you would think that Antonio Giovinazzi is a bit of a shoo-in on paper for a return to Formula 1. Well, unfortunately for the Italian, when you introduce a bit of context, reintroduce that context, it kind of falls apart, doesn't it? So Kimi was very much past his best, I think that's fair to say. Antonio shunted the Haas on his glory run at Austin, his chance to get a Haas seat, which obviously Nico Hülkenberg took instead. And he will be 30 by the end of this year. There was a few occasions where he'd have a worldie like qualifying. I'm thinking Monza 2021, I think it was, and then he shunted, crashed with Carlos. It was just always a bit of a nearly man. He's going straight in the "Are you mad?" section. This one ain't happening. Dennis Hauger is one of the very many Red Bull juniors plying their trade in Formula 2 right now. The 2021 Formula 3 champion didn't have the greatest season last year. He had his moments, but it seems to be coming together a little bit more this year. I mean, his Bahrain sprint tyre management coming through the field towards the end was an absolute masterclass. It's kind of stifled a little bit since then, but there's still plenty of races for him to recover. He seems more confident and comfortable at MP than he was at Prema last season. So you know what? I'm putting him in good option. It might be a bit early. He's only 20, but duck to water Max Verstappen. Maybe Dennis Hauger could do it. I know he's got a huge Norwegian fan base as well. To any of you watching, I know you like it when Dennis Hauger gets mentioned. You're welcome. Regulars on this channel will know I'm a huge fan of Alex Palou, and I've been advocating him getting a seat in Formula 1 for quite a while now. And look, I mean, I'm not like, oh, look at me, I've noticed Alex Palou. Like, he's won IndyCar already. He does bits every single season. He's leading IndyCar right now. The consistency of his pace is the thing, right? In such a competitive series, he's so impressive. Yes, he's in a good team, Chip Ganassi Racing, no doubt. And he is part of this McLaren driver development program that they've got going on. But I don't see a way in at McLaren. They've got Norris, they've got Piastri. In terms of long term, if they do lose Norris, okay, maybe Palou could step in. But if McLaren want to deliver what they've got right now, they don't plan on losing Norris. They don't want to lose Norris. But Palou would be a backup. He would be a second choice. Does that give an opportunity for Red Bull to maybe sniff around and maybe pick him up off their hands? I think he's a very, very exciting prospect, the 26-year-old. He is comfortably going in good option. But could he be the one? We'll decide that at the end. Josh Revel, if you are watching, you are welcome. I know how much you love Nick Cassidy, and he deserves some prop, not just because of his career or because he's a Kiwi, but because he is actually already part of the Red Bull program. Not so much junior program, but there's a relationship there already. The 28-year-old actually took on Alex Albon's Ferrari in DTM, the AlphaTauri branded one, after Alex returned to Formula 1. Two wins, having not competed in all of the races, by the way, either. Nick Cassidy is also currently leading Formula E right now. Now, you might think, oh, this is very short-sighted of you to put Nick Cassidy in, blah, blah, blah. No, his career, various different disciplines, is very impressive, and I think he's a driver that's been consistently overlooked. 2019 Super Formula champion, 2017 Super GT champion, 3 times New Zealand Grand Prix winner. In hindsight, maybe I'm somewhat surprised that Red Bull didn't go with Nick Cassidy and instead elected to go to Mercedes and take Nyck De Vries away. Nick Cassidy would be a good option for that seat, no doubt in my mind. Could Red Bull really return to Daniel Kvyat for a third time? I mean, they could. Dropped after 17, returned for 19, dropped after 21, returned for 23? No, for real, what would be the point, right? Kvyat's had many opportunities, he's taken some, but he's, I think, squandered others. He's not kept himself super fresh and relevant, I guess, within the Formula 1 paddock like Nico Hülkenberg did in order to get back into F1. I don't think that's out of no trying, right? He's been Alpine Reserve in 2021. He's doing bits with Ferrari at the minute in WEC. I don't think he's a mile off Nico Hülkenberg in terms of talent. I think he could come in and do a solid job. I think he'd do a better job than Nyck De Vries is doing him right now, but I can't get excited about this. Better than Giovinazzi, but it's just an eh. Sorry, DK. I do like him. I've got a lot of time for Daniel Kvyat. So Mick Schumacher has taken this reserve role on at Mercedes, a role that I think Mercedes are quite happy to keep him in for the foreseeable future, to be honest. Maybe with Audi coming in, eventually buying up that Sauber team until, they fully take over in 2026, that could be an opportunity for him because perhaps they do want a German driver leading the line. But Mick moving to the Red Bull family, look, that only makes sense from Red Bull's point of view if they fully took Mick Schumacher, and did he show enough in his first couple of seasons in Formula 1 to show that he's got this ability to be valuable to Red Bull long term? I don't think so. I'm not averse to him returning to F1 because on his day he was really good. I mean, Silverstone last year, Austria last year, fantastic performances by Mick, but just not quite often enough, and it wasn't a good fit at Haas. But hopefully his opportunity will come on one day. But this isn't that opportunity. He's going in air. Back to the Red Bull Juniors, and my favourite, bias alert, Ayumu Iwasa. Him and Ollie Behrman, who is also my other favourite F2 driver. I'm not a glory hunter, I promise, but they're the only 2 drivers to win more than one race so far this season, 2 apiece. Currently 3rd in the standings. He was 5th last year in Formula 2. I rate him every bit as much as Hauger. I don't think there's actually much in it between him and Hauger, honestly. Hauger won F3, but Iwasa's had the more exciting and more high-performance Formula 2 career so far. I'm going to put Iwasa ahead of Hauger in good option for 2 reasons. 1, bias. But 2, if they are thinking of selling that team, and Honda seems the most clear and obvious, and Honda, what are you doing if you don't buy this team? Because they could have a Tsunoda, Iwasa partnership, which is amazing, not just because they're 2 Japanese drivers, but they're both part of the Formula Honda. No, it's not called that, is it? Honda Formula Dream Project. That's the one. Stoffel Van Dorn had a very tough time in Formula 1, in part because that McLaren he was in alongside Fernando for those 2 seasons was absolute garbage. When you've got Fernando Alonso in the other car and you're a rookie, I mean, that's a baptism of fire if you've ever heard one. And it left the GP2 champion out of favour and out of a Formula 1 seat. Now, he's established a very respectable career in Formula E, has Stoff. 21-2 champion, of course. Multiple podiums in endurance racing and an F1 reserve. Kind of very similar to Nyck De Vries, actually, in terms of their paths. For sure, I do think he would do a good job if he came in, but he's 31 now, and I just think that I don't know if there's enough there for Red Bull to have to pay Aston Martin off, because he is Aston Martin reserve at the minute, to get Stoffel Van Dorn in. As much as he'd do a good job, there's nothing Red Bull about that move. There's nothing all exciting and different and interesting about that move. So Stoffel is going in. I'm going to give it an Felipe Drogovic comfortably won the F2 title last year in the end. Yes, Porsche was probably quite close on pace, but he had a bottle in him as well. So now Felipe is F1 reserve alongside Stoffel at Aston Martin. Now, again, for Felipe, where's the shot, I guess? That's what I would say. Because Alonso could go on forever. He will infuse with technology and become AI Alonso. If anyone could, it's him. And obviously Lance isn't going anywhere either. So is there a window of opportunity at Aston Martin? Yes, Alonso will retire eventually. Of course he will. So maybe then. But is it worth Felipe holding off? Or if there was an opportunity to go to Red Bull presented to him to go to AlphaTauri, should he take it? Yes, Red Bull have a lot of juniors to themselves already. It would be seen as very greedy to snap Felipe off of Aston Martin as well, given he's like their only junior driver. But I mean, he's got the talent. He's still only 22, very, very capable. And if given the right support in the right team, there's no reason why he couldn't become a top tier F1 driver. However, to take him away from Aston Martin, to pay them off, when you've got so many Red Bull juniors there already, it just doesn't make sense. It's an but that's no reflection on Felipe's quality. He is top tier. And talking of Red Bull juniors that are available, there's Zane Maloney. He's only 19. First driver in this list to be in their teens still. Had a worldly run in the Formula 3 last year. Only just lost out on the title to Victor Martin. And his momentum this year in Formula 2 has been pretty decent. Again, not quite the consistency of an Iwasa, but his Bahrain feature race was arguably the performance of any driver in F2 this season. P18 qualified, P3 finished in a feature race, in a spec series. That is pretty unheard of. He's lacking that experience relative to other junior drivers there at Red Bull, so it's an from me. If Umu and Dennis weren't there, then he would definitely be the next driver, I think, in most consideration, but they are there, unfortunately for him. Okay, back stateside, we've talked about Alex Palou. Now let's talk about Pato O'Ward. He's also a McLaren development driver, so he's had a bit of F1 mileage in a McLaren F1 car. He's also a couple of years younger than Alex. And as much as he hasn't won the championships that Palou has, his consistency of performances in IndyCar, again, such a competitive series, him and Palou are just so reliable. It's a Palou O'Ward 1-2 in IndyCar right now, and Pato has 3 P2s in 5 races. I said this with Palou, I'm saying it again, there's very little in it between the two of them. They're both in good option comfortably. It's kind of funny, isn't it, how they tried to sign Colton Herta last year. Colton's again having another difficult IndyCar season. But either way, for both Alex and Pato, where is the shot? Where is the opportunity at McLaren unless Norris leaves, I guess? I want to talk about 2015 DTM champion Pascal Wehrlein. He did race in F1, had 2 seasons, but he was never in a car that really allowed him to showcase the potential, I guess. It's a difficult F1 career looking back at Pascal's. I mean, Manor was nowhere, and Sauber, I mean, they've been nowhere for years, unfortunately. Even though, you know, his quality of performances did give him a shot at that Mercedes seat when Nico Rosberg retired, but rightfully so, Valtteri Bottas was the more impressive of the 2 drivers, did get that seat, and look at where Valtteri is now. He's been in Formula E since, which actually hasn't been that impressive over the years. However, right now, he's doing pretty well. He's P2 in the standings. And he was a Ferrari development driver in 19 and 20. There is no Red Bull Wehrlein connection as far as I'm aware. This one, I think it has to go in the Are You Mad section, I'm afraid. I just can't see it. Robert Schwartzman is a man that is often forgotten. Hence why I put him in the 5 drivers that you didn't know could legally race in Formula 1 video I did a couple of weeks ago. Top tier junior career, seemingly though just stuck in this Ferrari development reserve driver role, not really doing too much competitive racing, which is a bit of a concern, but the talent is clearly there. He's for sure the real deal, and it would be bonkers for any team looking to completely overlook Robert. Toyota Racing Series champion, F3 champion, then P4 in F2, followed by P2 in F2. He's ticking all the junior boxes that Liam Lawson is. He's just not part of the Red Bull family that Liam Lawson is. He should be being considered over a bunch in this list. If anything, I think Red Bull should be sniffing around him and trying to tap him up, because he would absolutely be a good option. I guess now we should talk about Liam Lawson, right? Seemingly the front-running candidate, and you can understand why. The 21-year-old beat Alex Albon in DTM. I can put my hands up and admit that. He did a much better job. In fact, Liam should have won the whole thing. It was only because he got sussly taken out at the end, didn't he? We won't get into that. He finished 3rd in F2 last season, nipping Logan Sargent at the end of the year, and is currently sitting third in Super Formula, having already taken a race win. The first, I think, ever rookie to win on debut in Super Formula. I'll put the actual thing on screen. There's something significant about that anyway. Maturity beyond his years. He's already done FP1 sessions for AlphaTauri and Red Bull. And also, I go-karted against him at Motormouth Karting. He was behind me, obviously, because, you know. And then he was there, and then he was gone because I think he went off and spun. So I was not overtaken by Liam Lawson. I'm taking that to the grave, mate. I also think Yuki and Liam were teammates, weren't they, during lockdown? I'm sure I remember watching some streams with Liam Lawson and Yuki was in the background, like messing with him or something. So there's clearly a relationship there. Liam Lawson is clearly a good option, but is he the one? Well, there's two more drivers to talk about. Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo. Right, okay. So this one does make a lot of sense in my opinion. There's been a lot of talk about it. There's no smoke without fire, and I think a lot of the talk has been justified sound logic rumours. In my opinion, if he wants what he says he wants, which is a top tier F1 seat again, the 33-year-old needs to try and get in this AlphaTauri for the second half of this season to put his stock on the upward incline, because you're only as good as your last race. I know that's not true. You're only good as your last race thing. That's not true, right? There's clearly talent there. That talent hasn't gone anywhere. But unfortunately, in certain circumstances, and when you're getting in your own head and you're down on confidence, we're all human beings. We're all capable of not performing at our best. If he jumps in for the last 10 races of the year and beats Yuki, like he should be able to beat Yuki, if he's as good still as I think he is, then that makes the prospect of hiring Daniel Ricciardo, if you're a top team principal, way more enticing. I really don't want that McLaren stint to define his career. I think that's incredibly unfair for what he's done in his totality. However, what is in it for Red Bull? I think the main thing that's in it for Red Bull is that it gives them a barometer for Yuki Tsunoda. If you chuck Ricciardo in that seat, okay, Yuki, what have you got now? This is a driver who's proven that we know how to get the best of. Can you step up relative to Daniel Ricciardo? Because right now, Nyck De Vries is not giving Yuki Tsunoda a test. A Ricciardo yardstick on its own makes him a good option for Red Bull, I think. But then we go back to where it begins. Full circle. Nyck De Vries. I retain that it was a bit of a weird choice in the first place, and that my only logic I can ascertain is that they're looking to develop him into the long-term Max Verstappen second driver, blah, blah, blah. Both Dutch get along well, la-di-ya-di-ya. That performance at Monza really did get him a seat in Formula 1. There is no doubt in my mind about that at all. Because things aren't going too well at the minute, it's easy to look on his F2 season sceptically. The season that he won being a really weak field, you know, Latifi was P2. Formula E Championship, you know, he got super lucky in that final race in Berlin. You had Evans, Mortara, Dennis, who were all right close to him and out-qualified him in that final race, all having stinkers and crashing. Yes, I know it's motorsport, but if you're going to look at the performance, if you're going to really analyse why and where a driver should be, you have to look at the nuance beyond just who scored the more points. Monza was a perfect storm. He didn't want to be considered to be a rookie, and unfortunately that has really bitten him on the arse. Because if he was a rookie, like a Logan Sargent, Logan's made his fair share of mistakes, but you give more benefit of that because it's literally their first year in F1 machinery. The expectations for De Vries have been rightfully higher from me, I think from most fans, internally at Red Bull. If he was a rookie, if he was 20, 21 years old, I don't think there would be this same talk around his future, even though he is at Red Bull's junior team, and Red Bull have a habit of kicking drivers out early doors, but they would have given him time. It was always going to be a pressure cooker. You know, after that Monza race, myself included, I was like, well, yeah, he is Formula 2 champion, he's Formula E champion, he deserves a shot. And I think based off of all the knowledge we had at the time, I think that was fair. It's just a real shame that Nyck's not been able to deliver on it. Maybe this car doesn't suit his style. I mean, imagine being a driver who, if you went to Team A, be unreal, but you instead went to Team B. Like, look at what happened to Ricciardo. He had a style that worked in the Renault, didn't work in the McLaren. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But either way, it's not good enough. There is a lot of pressure on Nyck right now. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because this pressure is going to come eventually. If you're going to be a top tier F1 driver, you're going to get those moments that there's a chance for big points, there's a chance for a podium, a win. This will make or break Nyck De Vries. Nyck needs to turn this negativity around his name at the moment and channel it in a positive way, because it's not going to go anywhere until his performances start improving. But I come back to what's the value for Red Bull of having Nyck De Vries at that team. I think they brought him in to be Checo's long-term replacement, and if performances don't improve, he won't be showing that he's capable of that, and therefore I'm putting him in air. Nyck De Vries, if he doesn't improve, if I was in charge at Red Bull, I would have him out of that seat mid-season. I know that sounds harsh, but he's not a rookie, and this is not charity. You might say Nyck deserves an opportunity, but what about all these other drivers who deserve that opportunity just as much, if not more? 13 races with his experience, not just in other motorsports, but all the other F1 cars he's tested, that is enough, in my opinion, to show whether he's got it. These first 5 haven't been great. These next 8 need to be. Okay, so we know it's not Nyck De Vries, the chosen one. Who is? Palou and O'Ward are very exciting to me. However, I'm going to take O'Ward out of this. He actually drives for McLaren. I feel like there's more of the connection between McLaren and O'Ward. I think they see him as more of a potential Lando Norris option. I'm judging that off vibes and the fact he's a little bit younger. Not much more than that, to be honest. But Alex Palou would be great. He did a fantastic job in Austin FP1 last year in that McLaren. Lawson is super young, super promising. He might not have won loads of titles in recent years, but he's always, every single time, he's always been competitive. There's so many things in and out of your control that can happen that can stop you winning a title, right? But he's always been up there, and that says a lot about Lawson's potential and talent. He's done it in DTM as well. He's done it in these other categories. He's shown adaptability. But honestly, for me, if I'm in charge at Red Bull, mid-season comes along, Nyck De Vries hasn't significantly improved, I'm putting Ricciardo in that seat. I'm giving him till the end of the year. I'm giving him 10 races in an AlphaTauri alongside Yuki Tsunoda. From Daniel's point of view, he needs to push for this move, in my opinion. This is a shop window opportunity for him. However, I'm not so much talking about that now. This is more why it works for Red Bull and why if I was in charge at Red Bull, I would make this decision selfishly. Pushes Yuki Tsunoda, challenges Yuki. Is Yuki potentially the future? Could he be that future number 2? Could he be the next Max Verstappen? Yuki's still super young. Some of his performances this year have been unreal, no doubt. Daniel started his career, well, he had HRT, didn't he, first, but then he had 2 seasons at Toro Rosso. That team knows him, he knows that team. I think they would get the best out of him. I'm sure we would get a Red Bull Renault level Ricciardo, not a McLaren one. I'm very confident of that. So if Tsunoda could match or even outperform Ricciardo, that to me proves that he is ready for that top seat. Whereas if Yuki just keeps beating De Vries this season, I don't think you could say that. I couldn't say that with the same confidence. But then you also have to consider the market and the eyeballs, right? Sticking Daniel Ricciardo in AlphaTauri will shift so much clobber. I know it's really expensive, but he has that effect. He is one of the biggest sporting personalities in the world right now, and arguably the biggest the sport has ever seen, up there with Lewis, up there with Senna, up there with Schumacher. Like, truly a name that is mainstream. Red Bull have such a valuable asset. They would be naive, in my opinion, to not use that, even if it's just in the short term. Daniel has, of course, said he doesn't want to settle for a lower team, and I understand that long term. I think give him till the end of the year, give him his chance, give him 10 races to get his stock back up and potentially put himself in with a shot of a different team. I don't think keep him for 2024 in AlphaTauri, no. I think that is when you probably get a Liam Lawson in. Either way, again, unless there's a huge turnaround, Nyck De Vries, that's not going to happen long term for me. So to clarify, I'm going Yuki Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo for the rest of 2023 from mid-season onwards. Then Lawson Tsunoda makes the most sense to me for 2024 onwards. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there any drivers I missed out? Any niche drivers that maybe you think deserve to be considered at least for potentially an AlphaTauri opportunity? Don't forget to like and hit the notification bell on this video so you don't miss the new uploads, please. I'd be very grateful. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.